Good day. Welcome to my perspective on geopolitical happenings around the world. If you have been a keen follower of geopolitics, you will know that the one topic that has dominated global geopolitical landscape has been the Ukraine-Russia war of the past 3 years. This war went hot in February of 2022, but it had had events preceding it that eventually led to a war as we see it today. And over the course of time, this war has been escalating and escalating to the point where the greatest chatter on mainstream media, one of the more frequent chatter discussions on mainstream media is the possibility of the outbreak of World War III. This is no light matter. World War III, fought in a modern term now, may not be between belligerents that are using conventional arms. We're talking about belligerent, a powerful belligerent here, a powerful country here that has a large arsenal of nuclear warheads, and it is expected and it is thought that a war like this may escalate into being a nuclear war. Over the weekend, there was a big ratcheting up of the war when Ukraine carried out an audacious escalation of the war when it attacked some air bases in Russia. These air bases were air bases that house strategic bombing assets of the Russian Airforce. These air bases were in far out places deep inside Russia, and it was carried out after a well-planned by the Secret Service of the Ukraine called the SBU. The SBU successfully attacked 5 air bases, but it was only in 2 of these air bases that a significant damage was done. Now, when we look at what damage was done, the Ukrainians claim that 41 of the Russian strategic bombers were destroyed, but following that, we now find out that it's between 10 to 17 of those Russian bombers that were actually destroyed. But whatever was destroyed, whatever may have happened, this is a new reality. This is a new form. This is an escalation of the war that nobody saw coming. Attacking Russia in Russian territory, deep inside Russian territory, to the extent of even being 2,500 miles inside Russian territory was quite a blow. You will call it a black eye on the Russians. This is by no means a light matter. We really don't know what the Russians will be thinking and planning now. In fact, the Russians have been silent, and in their silence, there's an omniity about their silence. It's very frightening that the Russians have not responded. Over time, we've come to see that the Russians have been attacked severally. There have been different levels of escalation of this war. It has gone through different iterations. There have been attacks on Russia different times. The Russian red lines have been crossed, including a very brazen attack on the Russian region of Kursk. But the Russians always act calm, and Putin always acts calm. But the response is one that is always devastating whenever it comes. Now we really don't know what kind of response the Russians will put. We don't know. Some people are mentioning that they may end up using their vaunted Oreshnik intermediate missile, or they may even use tactical nuclear weapons. Nobody really knows. But what we know for sure is that the Ukrainians are not giving up on this fight. They are not seeking to end this battle. And even as this raid was going on, it was just on the eve of a peace meeting that just took place in Istanbul. The peace meeting was to exchange memorandum as to what the Ukrainians want and the Russians want before there will be a permanent ceasefire to this war. And on the eve of this meeting, the Ukrainians carried out this very audacious campaign against the Russians. The Ukrainians are insisting that there must be ceasefire. And the Russians are saying, no, we won't have a long ceasefire. What we want you to do is leave 4 oblasts that we have annexed and recognize those 4 oblasts. Do not insist on reparations. And also, do not attempt to be a member of NATO or any other military alliance, and then reduce your armies to just only 50,000 people. This is what is contained in the memorandum that the Russians submitted to the Ukrainians when they met in Istanbul at the Siragan Palace. But after that event, and in the face of the fear that Russia is going to retaliate in a very brutal manner, as the Ukrainians are busy crisscrossing Europe, seeking funds, assistance. They are demanding more support for their cause, especially as Zelensky has been very busy, very, very busy crisscrossing Europe and crisscrossing the whole world. And in that effort to extend the war, he has allies like the EU President Ursula von der Leyen. He also has allies in powerful senators in America, a coalition led by Lindsey Graham, Senator Lindsey Graham. And all of them want bone-crushing sanctions against Russia. Everybody wants to destroy Russia, to defeat Russia. And this is a country that owns nuclear weapons in very large numbers. So in fact, for some analysts, the destruction of the Russian bombers is not really a major attack on the deterrent of nuclear deterrent of the Russians, because they tend to use submarines and land delivery systems for their own nuclear projection of delivery systems. So we really don't know how this is going to plan out now. It's really worrying. In the wake of it, there was a phone call between Sergei Lavrov and Marco Rubio, foreign ministers of Russia and America. It's very telling that the Americans have not talked much about it, because many people who talk on this issue says the reason the Russian strategic bombs were out there exposed for the Ukrainians to be able to attack was because of a nuclear because of a nuclear treaty between the Americans and the Russians, where one of the requirements is that bombers should always be out there for them to be sighted by satellites. But knowing what is going on now and seeing that everybody is now nervous about the possible reaction of the Russians, we are now beginning to get a situation where the Europeans are ratcheting up everything. Recently, the Germans pledged $5 billion to the Ukrainians, purportedly to be able to build industrial plants in in Ukraine, so that they can use to build ballistic missiles and improve their military industrial complex. In the same light, too, the Britons under Starmer just recently said they are moving on to a war footing and that they should be prepared for war with Russia. France, too, has been sending mercenaries to the Ukrainian war front and have suffered serious casualties in doing that. And they've been very, 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 President Macron has been very hawkish in promoting this war. At one point in time, he even said that there should be boots on ground, European boots on ground. So this war, we are seeing it escalate, and this war is beginning to be a problem to the point where we really don't know where it's leading to. For the Russians, the pace at which they are going is creating a problem for the Ukrainians. They are fighting an attritional war, and over time, they have slowly but surely gained territory, and they've increased the pace at which they are gaining Ukrainian territory in recent times. Maybe that may be the reason why Ukraine is calling for a ceasefire. But the Russians insist that a ceasefire will not be to their interest, because the Ukrainians will just use that time to rearm and become stronger and be able to fight again. So now, when we look at the fact that the American president, Donald Trump, has tried to set the pace for peace, he has tried to he has set the motion in motion, a situation where the Ukrainians and the Russians are talking to each other. Mind you, they didn't talk to each other for 3 years. All through the Biden administration and all through the course of that war, well, the Biden administration, they didn't even so much as have any situation where Americans talked to the Russians or the Russians talked to the Ukrainians. There was not a point. It was just sanctions, 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 to the point where we now have 25,000, 22,000 rounds of sanctions against the Russians. So the Russians too will be looking at this and be wondering, um, does the West want to destroy us? Now we hear that Putin's rating is up to the point of 80% among his populace. And now the populace is insisting that Putin takes more decisive actions against Ukraine. This is beginning to be frightening. What is the kind of decisive action that they expect Putin to authorize? Is it the destruction of probably some institutions in Ukraine? Is it a decapitation strike where tomorrow we won't see Zelensky anymore? What is it that Putin has in mind? Because while the Americans and everybody can always posture and say that they can threaten Russia, they should not forget that for the Russians, this is an existential battle. The Russians view this as they viewed World War II, that it's the West that is attacking them. And even though they may be using Ukraine, it is clear for all to see that indeed the West has coalesced and used Ukraine as a proxy in fighting against the Russians. For whatever reason, this hatred of the Russians have persisted and has grown. So what is Russia going to do in the wake of this massive attack? What is Putin going to do? Is he going to use tactical nuclear weapons? Is he going to use the Oreshnik again? Or is he just going to keep pace and continue to win territories and win more territories in the slow manner and attritional manner he has been doing over the course of the past few years? This is the questions that really bother people now. Ukraine is enjoying a moment of euphoria. They're enjoying the fact that they dealt a black eye to the Russians. It's in fact a devastating blow. Some of those bombers are no more in production. It's by no means a very big, embarrassing blow. It's a failure of intelligence, and it was an ingenious plan anyway, anyhow you look at it. But it has nothing to do with what's the reality on ground now and what's going on in the war. But this escalation is one that puts a new meaning to the war. It's an attack on Russia, within Russia, deep within Russia, in Russia's safest places, in Siberia, in the Far East, in places nobody ever thought Russia can be attacked in, because we should all remember that when Russia was attacked by Hitler and was attacked by Napoleon, the savior of the Russians was when they moved their whole industries to the Far East or to Siberia. Now we await with trepidation. Nobody really knows where this war is going to go next. World War III is slowly unfolding on us, and all of us are worried. But Donald Trump is caught in a rock and a hard place. He wants to end the war, he says. If he leaves the war, he will be accused by his domestic political opponents as betraying Ukraine. If he doesn't leave the war, he will do what he doesn't want to do, which is spend money in furthering and advancing the Ukraine war. And even though they keep talking about sanctions, it's not even a direct sanctions on America. It's sanctions on those countries that trade with America. That at a time that the global trade has already been upended by Donald Trump's tariffs, is not sounding to be like a good one, because we're talking about a proposal to put 500% tariffs against the Chinese and the Indians who buy Russian oil. This does not bode well at all. Donald Trump is in a bad place. Putin is in a bad place. The world's biggest leaders in a bad place. And we really don't know what decisive actions they're going to take that will eventually influence and affect us on Earth here. We are slowly teetering to the to World War III, and we really don't know how we're going to get out of it. We hope that whatever it is the Russians do, it will not be one that will create such panic and create such worry, escalate to a point where we will be very sure and certain that we have moved into an era of the world at war for the third time. If you have any suggestions and ideas about what I've just said, if you have any comments about what I've just said, please, what I've just discussed, make your comments below. Send your comments. Subscribe to my channel. It's Ebimo Amungo's perspective on geopolitics, global geopolitics. And like, share, support the growth of the channel. It helps to like and share and promote the channel through comments and through other things that the algorithm likes. Thank you for being with me to this point. We'll continue to discuss geopolitics and we'll put our own perspective on geopolitics going forward. Thank you.